High context cultures are identified as having a large pool of similar experiences or a low degree of diversity. As a result, most of information is provided through inferences, gestures, and not through words, a vague, indirect, and implicit form of communication. Oppositely, low context cultures have a high degree of diversity, which means they are lacking a large pool of similar experiences. Hence, verbal communication is prominent. Direct and unambiguous form of communication is deemed necessary.
I actually think that Malaysians should talk directly, like yes, having verbal communication than being talked into gestures um because how do I say this? um wait because Malaysians actually as society we talk a lot, so, right? We use to verbal communication a lot. So yes, verbal communication is more of a way than just gestures and signs.
I would say that there are definitely some gestures where Malaysians use a lot and everybody would understand what it means. So say for example, if someone, says something that doesn't make sense, we have a gesture for it, we'll be like, what? And then there's a gesture for it. But with that said, that being said, I would say that Malaysians do require and they do appreciate verbal communication with each other. Um, so yeah, we talk a lot. So we talk a lot. So I would say that because of that, like it is more important than gestures. Yeah.
Situation we talk so much. Like we just find every situation to talk. We can sit at like like a mama, which is like like a Muslim Indian restaurant. We can sit there for hours just talking, and there's barely any gestures. I mean, we are. I feel like when we as Malaysians when we talk, we use our hand a lot. Like we
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, I feel like when we use our hands, it kind of conveys the message better for some reason. But I feel like it doesn't really make much of a difference. But we
Yeah,
use
but you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking of like in terms of like, when you're driving and then the both of us, we will road rage, right? And then there will be a lot of hand gestures that we use. Not saying middle finger, but I'm saying like, like the what, the kind of the what, you know?
okay, yeah, I get it. Like when we pass by the security guard,
Yeah.
we raise
Yeah.
our like as if the security guard understands what we're saying, but we
Yeah,
get
exactly. Exactly. So we do have gestures, but it's just that it's not that prevalent. I would say we talk more and we discuss and debate more to
because we are very
communicate with each
talkative. We
other.
are very
Malaysians use verbal communication more than gestures. They talk a lot in a society. They also use gestures in some conversation too.
There are two forms of language used in the process of communication, verbal and nonverbal. When it comes to verbal language, it's important to understand and know about the use of specific terms or variations used in different cultures, as this is key for avoiding misunderstandings or conflicts to emerge during an intercultural communication. Some variations which will be discussed are: first is ergot. It's an informal language reserved for people who are connected to a specific culture. It's like an in-group and secret language. Second is slang. Designates those non-standard terms commonly used in informal circumstances, which serve as a means of marking social or linguistic identity. This definition suggests the main function of slang, that is to identify someone as part of a group or gang. Third is idioms, are a group of words that when used together have a particular meaning, different from the sum of the meanings of the individual words in isolation.
as for slang, um, teenagers nowadays actually use how do I say this? We have this one phrase that we saw to between friends like gerak dulu Papa Roger is more like I'm going first, so you can I'm going first, then if there's anything you can talk to me. It's a phrase like that, and it's actually very common and popular among teenagers nowadays.
But I mean, a lot of like slangs that we use also is like, I don't know, is tapao a slang? When you want to go and tapao, you don't say you want to go take away. You'll be like, tapao, tapao.
Yeah, it's basically a Chinese. It's just Chinese, but we just say tapao.
Yeah. Yeah, and all races use the word. They'll be like, do you want to tapao? Which means like, do you want to take away the food? So all races use that word, even though
Yeah.
it's actually like a Chinese word.
Yeah. We also like to say yamcha.
Oh yeah, yamcha.
It's basically just, do you want to go out and hang out?
Yeah,
But
yes.
it's actually a Cantonese word.
Yeah. But a lot of people use it. They'll be like yamcha mo.
Malaysia uses a lot of slangs that is a mix of Bahasa, Malaysia, and English. First is gerak dulu Papa Roger, which means I'm going first. If there's anything else, you can talk to me. Second is terase, which means why are you offended? Third is tapao, which means take away, used when going to a restaurant and want it to be for take away. Fourth is yamcha, which means you wanna go out and hang out. Fifth is boss, usually used when calling for a waiter or waitress in a mamak or coffee shop, Muslim Indian restaurant.
Nonverbal communication involves all those nonverbal stimuli in a communication setting that are generated by both the source and its use of the environment and have potential message value for the source and or receiver. Understanding types or forms of nonverbal communication used in different cultures is necessary to be successful during an intercultural communication process. One of the classifications of nonverbal language is appearance. Appearance as a form of nonverbal language includes things like how beauty is defined in a particular culture and skin color.
Actually, in Malaysia, attractiveness and beauty is still not viewed as open-minded as other countries. We still think that fair skin and skinny body is the thing that we should all follow. Like as an example, cosmetic products in Malaysia use a lot of a reference like um tu anda ingin kulit putih, anda ingin kulit menawan, yeah, something like that. Like you want fair skin, not dark skin, something like things like that. So as for darker skin, actually like in Malaysia, we have three main races as Chinese, Malays, and Indians, right? So I'm not saying that Indians and Malays and Chinese have the same privileges, but but having a darker skin in Malaysia doesn't make your social privileges lowered, but it doesn't make your life easier in Malaysia too. Yes, unfortunately, the the racism in Malaysia is okay, but still not as as it should be actually. Yes.
Definitely, I would say people are definitely looking at, you know, um, yeah, exactly. Appearance. So, and skin color does play a role, but I would say it depends on each society. Like generally, though, there's a lot of favorism for fairer skin. So even like amongst like the Indian community, like a really fair Indian is like extra pretty for some reason. Or like Chinese also, if they're really like Snow White, that kind of thing, that will be like wow, you like so pretty, that kind of thing. And same for the Malays as well. So I would say it applies to everyone. Fairer skin does have a favorism, but um, and also a lot of times the fairer the person is, somehow it means that they are richer. Like for some reason, like they have more. They are more privileged, that kind of thing. So it does give out that kind of vibe when you see a very fair person. But I would say that that is definitely changing now, that kind of mindset, because there's a lot of exposure to racism and biasness and all that stuff. So right now a lot of people are finding, just like, as long as you're really healthy, or if your fashion sense is really really good, you're already very attractive.
Malaysia is not open-minded towards attractiveness and beauty, as they still look at fair skin and skinny body as a favoritism that everyone should follow. The lighter the skin color, seen as they have more privileges, though it's definitely changing due to the exposure regarding racism and biasness. So looking healthy and have really really good fashion sense, then that makes you attractive. Another classification of non-verbal language is movement. One example is gestures. Gestures are non-verbal vocabulary people use to share their internal states both intentionally and unintentionally. Like other types of non-verbal expressions, different cultures have specific gestures which connote different meanings.
Malaysians have this habit of adding lah in to at the back of their at the back of their sentences. Like even though they are using English or Malay, they will put lah in the back of the sentences. It's different for a few states like Kedah, some of them uses boh. Like Sabahan, they uses bah. But in general, Malaysians always uses lah. As an example, saya tak tahulah atau or I don't know lah. Yes, it's something like that.
Malaysians has the habit of adding lah at the back of sentences, though in other states they are different, as some use boh in Kedah or bah in Sahaban. And also they use the what gestures, though Malaysia prefers to talk or debate more to communicate with each other.
A culture's perception of time can generate a lot of ideas about the function of that culture at large. One of the most notable classifications of people's view of time can be seen in Hall's M-time and P-time categorization. M-time, monochromic time, accepts time as a scarce resource or tangible which must be proportioned and controlled using calendar and arrangement, and through expecting to do just a single thing at a time. Societies with this direction see time as being substantial. Within a culture that holds this view of time, people talk about time like it's cash, something that can be spent, saved, wasted, or lost. P-time, polychronic time. This speed is more leisurely for P-time culture than the one observed in M-time cultures. Human relationships are critical in the P-time cultures, not tasks. Through P-time, time should be used to preserve harmonious relationships, which are deemed pivotal. Hence, the use of time isn't seen as something tangible. Multitasking is common in P-time cultures.
Malaysians view time as polychronic way. Yes, because um, as a country, society, Malaysians isn't actually as strict as a few countries that we can see like Japan or Korea. Yes, we are more, like I said before, we are more of a laid back and relaxed society.
As someone in the friend group that's always late, I would say that we do not see it as something tangible. Because I really think like what for us is like if we can meet up with each other and we know we have this amount of time, we'll just like spend this much time. But if it's like long term wise, we take it very seriously. But if it's like an everyday thing, we are like we can wake up at 2 o'clock and we can still hang out at 3. We doesn't really matter to us. I guess it really depends on the situation. I would say. Long
Yeah.
term, yeah, long term wise is very important to us. But at the same time, we also have like people only starting their studies at like 27 years old. It's not a big deal to us. It's really based on whatever you want and really based on the situation. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it's the same as well. Like, I don't know, Malaysians, I would say time doesn't, they always say time is money, right? That time of term, that kind of term. But like, generally we don't really like, we really spend time a lot. So even like, when you're at work or something, you spend a lot of time at work, but you still, it's not really like, I would say it does affect productivity in a sense, because you're spending so much time at work to the point where you're not really being productive, you're not using the time well enough. So that's, I would say, in terms of like professionalism wise, or like being in the working world. But like social wise, yeah, it's definitely not something tangible at all. So like we just like, if we can hang out, we're gonna hang out, and we can be as late as we want. And then the most people is gonna say like, wow, really? Or something like that. And then we'll just like move on from that. Nobody's gonna give each other a hard time because they're being late or anything like that. So yeah, time is not really something that's seriously taken in Malaysia, I would say.
Malaysians view time in a polychronic way. They do not view time as something tangible like money. As a society, Malaysians are not as strict with their time as other countries, such as Japan. Time in general is not taken as seriously in Malaysia unless it involves a long term matter. However, it really depends on the situation.
The role of culture is eminent in different contexts. One of those contexts is education. Things like how a class is conducted, teacher-student relationship, learning style, and etc. are reflections of how a culture influences people's lives. A common difference of education style can be seen between the view of citizens of the United States compared to people of East Asian countries like China and Japan. Education in the United States is seen as important, but it's not considered an absolutely essential thing for success. If a person has an idea, then that person can fulfill their dreams. Differently, Chinese and Korean students see education as something that should be taken seriously. They should work hard on school. This is partly due to the confusion and influence that exists in both nations and its focus on the results from the prestige and material benefits obtained through education.
Actually view our educations like East Asian view, because our past leader, our past prime minister, Tun Mahathir, um, uses have this friend that is called as ja- jarak pandang ke timur. Yes, jarak pandang ke timur. We view um, Tun Mahathir want want the society, want Malaysians as a whole to take example in countries like Japan and Korea for their work manner and their education. So we view educations more as from East Asians rather than United States.
Yeah, so basically, for me personally, I wanted to do music before I wanted to get into my job. But the first thing that my parents are worried about is like, how are you gonna make money? That kind of stuff. Music is not something that you can, get money from. It's not as stable. That kind of, you hear a lot of that happening. And so education is taken really seriously. And even until now, people are just considering between law, business, medicine, architect, engineer. It's normally just these five. So it's like very, very professional kind of, work stream rather than
Yeah.
you hearing people like, oh, I want to be an actor, I want to be a singer, I want to be a producer, I want to be a photographer. You don't really see that happening a lot. So a lot of times people have that kind of like point of view. If like someone tells you, oh, I'm studying mass communications, and then the parents are going to be like, or like just people in general, oh, you must, I don't think you were that smart. That's why you didn't go into the sciences, or that's why you're not doing law, that kind of stuff. So it's a very, very bad point of view because like creativity and like the creative arts industry, I would say they're making so much money, but I don't know why people are just looking at it in such a bad light in Malaysia. So we do take it very seriously and we take it to the point of where sometimes people even judge you. So like me and Chloe were doing law, right? I graduated in law, Chloe is reading law, and we get a lot of that kind of like comments where like if you're arguing with someone and then they'll be like, oh, this is the lawyer in you, like lawyer buruk. There's a Malaysian term called lawyer buruk, so that means you like to argue with people a lot. But it's really not because of what we study, it's because of just our characters in general. So sometimes the stuff that you study, like the stream that you're going through, whether if it's science or art, sometimes it just leads to judgment as well in Malaysia. Yeah, so it's definitely the complete opposite of the US view of education.
I would say like even in secondary school or like primary, they don't really um like like ask you to do more creative things or anything. They mostly just try to focus on you passing the test. Like they really just focus on you getting good results and
Yeah.
graduating. Actually like focusing on your hobbies and what you actually like. Like maybe you like music or like you like art, and but they don't really care because if you do something like that, they just say like you're entering industry that won't make any money or there's no future, anything. But I think because it's also it's very common Asian thing, I would say, where we really just focus on like making money when you go out to work. So they don't really care about like if you want to do sports or you want to like pursue an art career. They will just say like in Malaysia that it won't happen. Yeah, they're just asking for a doctor. Yeah.
But like I want to add something as well. The thing is, there is also this kind of perception. The more privileged, so basically the richer society, is where you can see that children are more allowed to do more creative stuff. So like the ones the I would say the youngsters, or like basically the people that manage to go to international schools, which are really, really expensive in Malaysia. When they go to international schools, so like they get more wholesome kind of education. The education system is more wholesome, so like they're more exposed to like music and art and acting and drama and theater. So like when they follow their passion, even from that age, their parents are very open about it. So like it's like the more privileged you are, the more how to say you're allowed, I guess, to like pursue the more creative points. So like for example, my boyfriend, he graduated a degree in drama, which is not something that you see people do that much in Malaysia. So initially, every time like when I tell people like, oh yeah, he graduated in drama, then people will be like, oh, he must be really rich. So that's that kind of point of and that kind of mindset as well in Malaysian community. And it's really what we see as well. The richer the people are, the more it seems like their parents allow them to pursue the creative arts. Yeah.
Malaysia's view of education leans more toward the East Asian view. They take examples from countries like Japan and Korea, especially their education and work ethic. Education is taken very seriously in Malaysia. Even in primary and secondary school, creativity has never been considered as a priority. However, the privileged or the richer society are more allowed and exposed to education based on arts and creativity.
One of the challenges of intercultural communications is the existence of a multitude of stereotypes and prejudices people hold of one another. Stereotyping is a complex form of categorization that mentally organizes your experiences with and guides your behavior toward a particular group of people. It is a means of cognitively organizing your perceptions into simplified categories that can be used to represent an entire collection of things, processes, or people. Stereotypes tend to narrow your perceptions and can easily take a negative tone. They often result in overgeneralized categorizations of a group of people. These overgeneralizations, especially when negative, can adversely impact intercultural communication.
Actually, no. I think all exit all ethnics in Malaysia are all the same because we're all living in the same country. So um, it isn't actually based on their culture or their races. I think it is actually based um, on their educations and their personality as a whole human being. So I don't actually think that races define someone as atau races define someone as their own personality.
It doesn't really matter whether you are a part of a dominant culture, as all races in Malaysia are considered the same. It depends more on one's education and personal perception.
Okay, I would say that there are stereotypes, there are prejudices. Very sad to say that there are, but whenever someone has that kind of stereotype or that kind of prejudice, immediately there is always someone else that counters them back. So, like, say for example, someone is like, saying like, oh, that's such a typical Malay thing to do. It'll be like that. Then everybody would like, there would at least be one person that would be like, no, like, they'll be like, I think I see this kind of character in all other races as well. Why are you like just being so specific on one race? So I would say that there are still stereotypes and prejudice, and there are definitely people in that community or in that race society where they don't help the prejudice.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, so there's a certain type of prejudice, and then people are trying to move forward from that prejudice or from that stereotype, but there are still people in that society that doesn't help with the prejudice. They're proving it even more. So that's why it makes it very difficult for people to not be stereotypical, to not be judgmental based on like ethnicity or like cultural background. So yeah, so like it's a bit sad, but it's kind of like take one step forward, take one step back kind of thing going on right now, I would say, for Malaysia.
I think it's also because like I mean oh my god, it's gonna sound so controversial, but it's because of the politics in Malaysia where sometimes they use like races to segregate people so that you won't come forward and realize like you have the right to for your democracy and for you to vote basically. So
Yeah.
then they kind of project all these stereotypes and this, but I think it depends on a lot of the social backgrounds that they come from and where did they grow up. But I think a lot of people are learning that these kind of things you can't just say out like that, and you should learn that everybody is just different, you know. But yeah, I think personally I still think that they are quite they can be very prejudiced to a certain race. Unfortunately, like even as a Chinese, I mean, as a Chinese in Malaysia, I feel like I still get some sort of privilege. But like
Yeah.
Indians, they are still looked down upon, even though they can do much better than all of us. But it's because of how people just kind of view them from like since the beginning of times, which is very sad. And but I think all of us are really learning with social media and everything. So we're taking it baby steps, lah. Yeah.
Stereotypes and prejudice are inevitable. But these kinds of judgments are usually immediately countered by someone else. There are also people that does not help with the prejudice, or are even proving them to be true, which makes it even more difficult to not be stereotypical and judgmental. However, with the help of social media, more and more people are learning to accept their differences.
To conclude this video, we consider it's important to note the idea that the cultural categorizations and or classifications used may not entirely be perceived similarly by every single person of a particular culture, and that individuals of a culture may have opposite views of a specific matter. Hence, in the light of intercultural communication, we suggest for an important consideration to be kept in mind while in an encounter with a person from a different culture. Be mindful. Being mindful means that it's necessary to make sure to increase awareness of one's own behaviors and be more accepting of different practices and perspectives. And with that comes the end of our video. Hope this video is helpful and thank you for watching.